Welcome to Riverdale After Dark, a podcast about the CW's Riverdale that's slowly, ever so slowly crawling its way out of the dark until, like a groundhog, it will emerge again in January. I'm Alex.
It's been so long since we did this, I forgot we did this opening thing. But here I am doing it anyway. And isn't Groundhog's Day in February? Let's follow up with more details. I'm Justin.
I'm Pete, and I always forget about this bit.
Well, welcome back, everybody, or at least temporarily welcome back as we continue to truck along to the just announced January 20th premiere date for season 5 of Riverdale. That's very exciting.
So
we got a little bit of time there, but we want to check in with all of you and with the Riverdale Nation.
We miss it. We're very excited to get back to it. And speaking of things that are old that are new again, just want to say happy belated birthday to A. Zalbers.
Oh,
that's
thank
nice.
you so much. Thanks for saying it on this podcast. I appreciate it.
It makes the most sense to say it right here, right now.
Yeah.
So here's what we're going to do with this little podcast here. Later in the show, we got a ridiculous amount of tweets from you all with your theories about season 5, your questions, your concerns, all of those things. We want to get to as many of those as possible. But first, we got a special little treat for you all. This is not exactly new. This has been bouncing around for, I think at this point, about 4 years on the internet, so you can search it out if you want. But it's the third revised network draft of the pilot of Riverdale.
Yes.
I don't know exact figures, but just to give you a sense of the continuity if you don't know, this is, I believe, for the CW. Originally, Riverdale was developed for Fox before it moved over there. I'm guessing this is around the time it was on the CW, but I don't know for sure. And I think I read somewhere that there were 5 drafts total. So this is not the first pilot draft. This is not the last pilot draft. This isn't the version that you saw on TV. But it is interesting to check out because it's still written by Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa, and it's an earlier version of what they were thinking. And for those of you, we've talked about this in the podcast before, but there are so many things that they went through. At one point, it was going to be a time travel comedy. At one point, it was going to be all about the battle of the bands between the Archies and Josie and the Pussycats.
Oh, man.
I know, right? I'm
Can
sure
you
we'll get that
imagine?
someday.
Yeah. I mean, it is crazy, too. I mean, especially in this time where we haven't had any Riverdale, and the last season was left sort of truncated, and we're just waiting desperately to find out what's happening with the big prom situation. And to go back and read this and think about what it was at the start, what it could have been, like you're saying, is so interesting. And really reading this, all the pieces are there.
Yeah, it's all there. It's not like, I mean, there are definitely minor changes, but mostly it's kind of the same bones, I would say. And it was rough reading the Fred parts.
Yeah. Sure. It's like you're saying, it's interesting to look back at it now, and I will say it's a good script. I enjoyed it. I had a fun time reading it. Like you were touching on, Justin, and we'll get to some of the changes, some of the things that kind of fell away or got switched around or moved to other places in the show in a moment, because I figured, I'll take a note or two, but I have a whole list of them here, and we'll see what we get to. It works. That was all I was going to say, is that it is a fun script. It works, but you can kind of see why the pieces they changed were the things that they changed.
I was really impressed. I mean, this is a really good script. I mean, Justin, being LA Justin, you got to get a ton of shitty scripts, pitched to you all the time. What did it feel like to read a good one like this?
I really don't think you understand anything about my life, but I'll take it. It was to read a script that feels this sort of fully formed and really well done. Like the twists and turns, the amount of like excess in high school, just the way they lay out the high school life that we've come to sort of know and love about Riverdale is so cool to see.
Yeah.
So how should we do this? Why don't we, I can kind of work through the notes that I took down, and obviously we can go free form from there. But the biggest one, the biggest thing, the biggest change in the script happens right up front. Jason Blossom has a line, and that changes everything.
Yeah.
Like from there,
Wow.
I was like, this is not the Riverdale you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, you were into that, Pete?
Very much. I mean, it's nice to see Jason get a little bit more due in the script because in the real show, poor guy didn't get a lot before he was, brushed off. I'm sure it was L.A. Justin going to speak to this, but a lot of times when they get actors on set, they start acting up and being very like, me. And sometimes you got to write them out of scripts,
That's, again, Pete, I don't know what you've been watching or viewing, but that is mostly not how it works.
Weird.
What, have you been watching like soap operas or what like early Friends episodes?
I hear stories from the set, and that's
Well,
From
just
who?
to cut this off, because I don't want anybody to get upset, apparently everybody loves Trevor Steins, who plays Jason Blossom on the show. It's just funny to me, and I know it actually is a little deal, but it's funny to me that he gets a line here when the whole bit is that he never talks. Every time he pops up, flashbacks, everything. So it was funny to see that tiny little change.
Well, and I do think it's actually stronger if he doesn't speak because he's more of a mystery then. Like to see him and not hear him and just have more questions about him than anything, I think is better. So I do prefer the way they landed on it. And also, if we just see him, he really becomes this sort of specter hanging above Archie much more. He's this like and you see in the script that this first season had a lot of like Archie is replacing Jason in a lot of different ways on the football team, sort of in high school as the cool kid, and
Potentially with Cheryl.
yes. So it's like having him be more of a specter from the jump, I think, makes it stronger.
Yeah. The other thing overall about this script that I thought was interesting versus what we saw on TV is they clearly rejiggered it to focus much more on Jason Blossom's disappearance and murder. It's interesting from a script perspective because it is just like little scenes and little pieces of dialogue here and there. But it's clear this one was trying to set up multiple mysteries. And at some point, I'm going to take a wild stab and say it was Greg Berlanti because he's pretty famous for giving like very specific notes. But I'm sure somebody came out and said, just focus on this one mystery. Just make it the one mystery. Have all the other stuff going on, but just this one thing. Because there's a whole thing late in the script where Alice and Hal at the register are going after Hermione and Veronica and trying to entrap them because they're like, man, that Jason Blossom story really didn't pan out for us at all. And that one line that they say kind of undercuts everything about the Jason Blossom mystery in my mind.
Yeah. And then I don't know if this made the final cut, but you got Hermione and Smithers getting high in the back.
Yeah.
I don't remember
that scene.
Which I thought was pretty wild.
That's
also
weird,
crazy
'cause-
that the original narrator was Pop.
Well, one of the hamburgers, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well,
And
he's
that was
sort
the
of
last
going
line of
into
the
a
script is,
hamburger
"And
character.
I'm a talking hamburger, and this is Riverdale.
And it's a strong choice. It really makes sense why Jughead is sort of the character with the hamburger, and he would write in the hamburger voice.
Yeah. I think
So
that's
interesting
smart.
change.
Yeah, coming from the hamburgers like POV, I'm really hoping in the next season we're going to get more of that because that is just gritty, just kind of
gritty.
like,
Eat
Fry
me.
level, just documentary style, just feeling the heat in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really Fry level. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Fry level. That's the way. Good writing is always on Fry level. You want to sort of speak fry to fry with your audience?
Oh,
You know what I'm
man,
talking
if you
about?
can.
Oh, nice.
If you can.
If you can.
To jump ahead to the end, actually, because there's another little twist here. So Jughead is narrating the whole thing. He's certainly in it less than I think the TV version that we saw. He's kind of held in the background the entire time. And the reveal is that he's hearing impaired, that he has a hearing aid. And there's a specific note in the script that he talks a little differently as somebody who has forgotten what his voice sounds like out loud versus his narration, which is the more steady Jughead narration that we know. I think that's an interesting detail. I understand why they excised it, but it did make me feel like, oh man, that could have been a cool thing and a cool part to throw in there in the show. What did you guys think?
I agree with you, but I do think it's a little weird to me to be like, because he's painted as such the emo outsider, and to then give him this hearing impairment felt a little like mean. And I sort of championed the choice of taking that part out. But I was struck by how much of an outsider he is in this. It really is not the core four at all. It's building towards, so much of this episode is about building the Betty and Veronica relationship, and then the trio, and then Jughead comes out of nowhere, which is, I guess, where he's headed now, back to nowhere in our current season.
What's nice is whether or not you're talking about the
slip that right under the rug, Pete.
Yeah. I thought it was good. I think regardless of whether we're talking about the show or the script, Kevin is great in all of it, which is just fantastic.
There are a couple of little changes with him as well, and maybe these are things that I'm forgetting for the pilot, but Kevin's dad is General Keller instead of Sheriff Keller, which I thought was interesting and consistent with the comics, if I remember correctly. Also, Kevin calls Archie Endgame about Betty, which is pretty early. We didn't get that.
Yeah, first up, dropping the end game.
Yeah, got to drop the end game.
And you know, when you hear it in the pilot, it's like Chekhov's end game. You know that it's going to go off by the end of the series. Boom. Barchi. Hashtag Barchi.
No.
And then the other thing, maybe I should have watched the pilot again before we tape this. I just neglected to. But Kevin hooks up with the dude on Grindem, I believe, and then they find Jason's body in the woods. But here in the script, it's a kid in school who's named Devin. So you got Devin and Kevin, Devin Davis,
Very
Kevin
strange.
Keller. Very fun. And that definitely would have changed things, I think, for the better if there was another LGBTQ plus kid right from the top in the school. That would have been nice.
And it's interesting why they moved away from that. Maybe just to keep the number of characters down. I don't quite know, because I agree with you. The fact that he was named Devin, I was like, wait a second. This is not necessary. But
this is ridiculous. This is the most ridiculous naming I've ever heard on this show.
This show won't get any more ridiculous than Devin and Kevin. I think we can all agree on that.
Tall Boy would certainly agree.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, Sweet Pea might have a say in that.
Pop Tate? No, Pop Tate. Wait, who was I thinking of? I don't know.
Poutine?
I don't know.
Are you talking
Papa
about
Poutine?
the
Papa Poutine?
Poutine. That's right.
I said Pop Tate, but then it got stuck in my Papa Poutine. Thank you. It's
Papa
been
Poutine.
a while. Papa Poutine. A couple of other things. There's a Judy Blume flashback from Judy Blume cameo in there, which is nice. I guess they couldn't get her.
Yeah, Bloom's busy.
Yeah, she's got that Bloom money. She got no time for TV.
She invented the bloomin' onion.
That's true. A lot of people only know her fiction, her child fiction work, but she actually invented the double deep fried onion at Outback Steakhouse.
She wrote that book. What was it called? Are You There, God? It's Me. Outback Steakhouse.
Oh, my God.
Yes, that's right.
Fudge.
She was the one that demanded it have 2,000 calories in it. Have a full day's calorie count. It's a murder weapon.
It with extra calories, Judy Blume said.
Murder weapon.
She goes into every Outback with an injection of pure hot oil and just shoots it right into the center. It's a secret recipe.
Yeah.
Now, here's a relatively big change, or at least it would have changed things tremendously going forward, and I'm curious to hear what you think of this one, Pete. I'm sure you have opinions. But Fred and Mary are still together at this point. What'd you think about that?
That was kind of crazy, but I was like, it's kind of a sweet start. It really, messes things up going forward. But I think that's interesting. Definitely gives the kind of like neighbor a little bit more wholesome feel to it, where you got the two families right next to each other. The families are still intact. And it's also just crazy to go back and read this. And I'm like, oh, later he's going to be a murderer. It's just crazy to see different people being normal. Yeah, being normal before things kind of blow up.
And also she's in real estate instead of law.
Yeah,
which
that's going to hurt later when things really go down and Archie gets himself in trouble with the law.
So this is another thing that it always struck me as weird that Fred and Mary were divorced before the show started. No, it really did going in, because it did feel like you needed that solid Andrews family unit to be working against anything. And it never quite made sense to me that Fred and Mary broke apart.
I don't know. I thought it updated it nicely to kind of give it not that comic book Archie feel. Like, it really separated from the comic book, I felt like, in a nice way, to be like, this is different. This is going to be a lot edgier, a lot scarier, a lot different things.
I guess what I'm saying is that it felt like, to me, the Andrews family should be that oasis. However, they still have the note that Hermione and Fred dated back in high school, which they talk about. Yeah, so again, it seemed pretty clear to me that it's along the line. Somebody gave the notes of, if you're going to have this romance going forward, break up Fred and Mary, and then you have the way open for that, and that becomes interesting.
That's a good note. It's a good note, It
makes if Fred was cheating on his wife to have this sort of affair with Hermione, I think that really damages Fred as a character.
Yeah.
So to have them already separate, I think is good. And also, like, in this episode, we don't see Mary at all. Like, she's just like, hey, off to work. So it's like, if we're not going to ever service this character, then, like, why do we need it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like the fourth host we had on this podcast that we eventually deleted.
Mary Andrews, right?
Yep. Also, ironically, named Mary.
Let's talk about the Pussycats, because there's a couple of differences with them. The two biggest differences, I think, first of all, Melody is a platinum blonde. So that's going on. Also, there's a note in there about how they're wearing their ears already. And they're like, and there's a very funny note about like, oh, yeah, we're going there. Yeah, we're doing it. We're doing the whole thing. And it's, I don't know if you got this impression. This is more of like a reading the script thing, but it seemed like it got looser and more fun just in the writing of the script as it went. Like, it's very locked up at the beginning, and you start to get ridiculous notes like that really flesh it out and give a sense of they're having fun with this. They're not taking down Archie comics. They're not skewering it. It's not coming from a place of meanness or anything. It's coming from a place of fun and playing with and teasing the audience a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely feel the love of the comic in the script, which is nice. But I agree, like you're saying, a lot of the notes are great, and I think making us, kind of earn the Josie and the Pussycat full costume later instead of giving it to her right in the pilot is smart.
Well, I think in the script, we get a lot of references to different movies and TV shows that they're like, like this, like the Nicole Kidman To Die For movie. There's a great reference in here about that. And throughout, and Romeo and Juliet, the Baz Luhrmann movie. And the fact that the magic of this show and this script is that they're able to thread together all these references, cultural references and visual references without it feeling forced or cheap, and still make all this comic book stuff feel real, which is so hard with comics that are sort of so stylized and goofy as some Archie comics.
Yeah. Getting back to the Pussycats, the two other things that I thought were interesting, and maybe, again, I'm misremembering the pilot, but the Pussycats already have 200,000 YouTube followers, which seems to work against the way that we know them in the show, where they're big in Riverdale, but really need to work outside of the town. So that certainly changes things. And another thing that I thought was a really fun little Easter egg is in honor of Jason, they sing Mad World, which, as we well know, doesn't show up until much, much later in, I think, the most derided scene, or one of the most derided scenes in Riverdale history. The Serpent Dance one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they really held on to that.
Yeah, they really made us work for it before they gave that up.
It was interesting seeing Josie and the Pussycats be more famous, A, and be sort of a part of the show, even since, as we know, Josie left to go to New York and be part of a show called Katie Keene that sadly won't be coming back.
Why do you got to bring that up?
Because it's true. And I'm curious, because it's very apt to our conversation about Josie.
Fucking A, man. That's just bringing up some hurtful shit.
Yeah. really wear your heart on your sleeve, Pete, when it comes to the Pussycats. Does that mean, now that Katie Keene is canceled, that we're going to see Josie back on the show going forward in a larger role?
If they're smart, that's what they'll do.
Yeah, I hope so. I don't think so. I mean, my sense, I've never talked to her, but my sense is that Ashley Murray is probably moving on to other projects and doing other things. And I think that's okay. The show is doing other things as well. I love her on the show. I thought she was great as Josie, but I think we can head in other directions, and that's all right.
I hope she doubles down and does like a dirty laundry situation, where it films her own Josie and the Pussycats video.
By the way, Pete, no one knows what a dirty laundry situation is. That sounds like a weird made-up term that you're talking about. Would you like to define that, or are you comfortable just saying,
I'm comfortable with it.
We got ourselves a real dirty laundry situation here?
Yeah.
Great.
A couple of other little notes as we're working through here. I thought this was an interesting one. So Grundy did a mentorship with a character called Tomoko Yoshida, who is a Archie Comics character and not Jason Blossom. So she probably wasn't a serial abuser like she turned out to be in the show. That was an interesting little thing. Also,
but I like that note because I think that speaks to this Archie replacing Jason thing that they developed as this went on.
Yeah, absolutely. And also then it's this dangling character that you just kind of mentioned as an Easter egg that went away and is never showing up again. So I think it's okay to cut it.
It's crazy they didn't follow up that Juilliard violin virtuoso storyline. Yeah,
Archie could probably decide he's the best at violin for 3 episodes.
Oh, wow. Or maybe the bear that mauled Archie is a violin
I believe
maestro.
That more.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Betty, because Betty is way darker in this script.
Yeah.
In a different way than she is on the show. There's a very big scene. She is pretty traumatized about what happened with Polly and Jason. And there's a scene where she and Veronica are walking. Veronica's prodding her about joining the River Vixens. And she stands next to a freight train and screams.
I love this.
I
love the scene, too.
Yeah. I wish... it's dangerous to shoot that, I think, is perhaps a production reason why it went away. But, man, what a cool scene. That feels like a real trailer. Could have been a trailer moment for the show. Like Betty and Veronica with Betty just, like, screaming. Feels very Twin Peaks in a good way, but also, like, teen rebellion, not fitting into this small town with secrets. Like, I thought it was great.
And Justin, I'm sure you know this from being an upstate guy. Screaming next to a train is glorious. I mean, it's a fun, great activity to do. Great way to kind of vent and feel better about yourself.
It's a pastime. I put it on my college applications.
Have you guys seen that movie, Train Screaming?
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
Very dark.
Very dark.
When they crawl into a toilet at one point in that movie.
And it's one of those train toilets, so it's like super gross.
No thanks. Unlike the Metro North, no thanks.
Oh, man.
Now that's a good place to sit and relax.
These are just like a couple of script notes that I wrote down.
Punctuation
things
notes?
that I just thought were... Well, that I thought were fun that were written in the script. I mean, first of all, before I get to those, a bunch of cursing in the script, which I thought was interesting, given that it could have been at Fox. It was going to the CW. I don't think there's a point that they could have been like shit and fuck and asshole. So I wonder what the intention was there or what they would have done. But the two that I wrote down is after the Betty Veronica kiss. There's a fun note where in the directions it says, "And the heads of every Archie fan on the planet explode. It's the water cooler moment of the 2016-2017 television season." Wow. Or is it?
I thought that was cool.
That was fun because then Cheryl, of course, undercuts it completely. And then the other one that I wrote down is, fuck, is Archie blackmailing Miss Grundy? Is that the kind of show we're doing? Which made me laugh as well.
Well, and I do think both these things you're mentioning, those little script action line flourishes and having the characters actually swear, I feel like it's something you see in a lot of scripts that I think are there to like really get the readers, the network execs, everyone like on board and into the vibe, even though they know at the end of the day they're going to have to. They're going to have to change those swear words, and no one's ever going to see all this action dialogue or action direction from the side. Like, it's there for flavor. And I think it does. In reading this, it really adds so much of it. Like you said, it really builds so you feel like you're coming into the voice of the show as you're reading the script. And if anyone out, any big Riverdale fans out there, like track down this script because it is really fun to see the enthusiasm in the script writing come together.
I agree. I mean, I guess everything else, there's little tweaks and changes here and there. Instead of Sheriff Keller, we got Detective Sam Hill. Also, there's a note about Hermione maybe tried to steal Hal in high school from Alice, which obviously would have changed things quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then there's little setting things like where Cheryl sets up the 7 Minutes in Heaven game is a little different. It's in Mr. Blossom's man cave. There's some little bits that are different with Cheryl as well, I think, and particularly her relationship with Penelope. Penelope seems a little softer to me in this version.
Like, drugged up in a slightly different way. She seems like a sort of Stepford wife as opposed to someone who's like a straight up wall hiding in monster.
But overall, great. Any final thoughts, any notes before we move on to everybody's questions and tweets?
I was really impressed how close this was to the final product. I thought it would be a lot different. A third version of a draft is still pretty rough, but I was really impressed with how great this was and how the show really came across, and the things that we know and love are all in the script.
Yeah, I agree. And like to hit on some of them, I thought we get well, Pete, you're a huge Butler stan. Did you like when Veronica meets Smithers for the first time? What a moment, right?
Yeah, that was real nice. And she was very cold to him, which hurt. But you could feel the love on Smithers' end.
Yeah. Sad that he died off screen, I want to say, in a
he's
later season.
No, he's going to come back. Don't you worry about it.
Wasn't he working at a bus depot or something for a little while?
We should really track the arc of Smithers. That should be a whole episode we do, and just really get into it.
We've got nothing but time before January.
100%.
Shoot us your Smithers-related questions.
Yeah, let's
Riverdale
build
Dark
Smithers Hive. Hit us up with all your Smithers-related content. Let's get that full Smithers montage built. Couple of just funny Archie things. I love he's talking to, I think, Betty, and he's like, I would write these poems when I was working construction, and then I would set them to music. I'm thinking about calling them songs. Have you ever heard a song before? I was like, come on, dude.
I love the part where he's like, it took me half of summer to realize these poems weren't poems. They were songs the whole time.
That's the biggest reveal, is that Archie discovers music right in front of our eyes.
He invented it.
Yeah, he did.
It's the origin of love.
The origin of love? Is that what you just said?
It is.
That's what we get a lot of here. Another Archie thing, he walks into the band rehearsal of Josie and the Pussycats and demands them to write his songs. I feel like that scene was in the actual pilot, but man,
it was.
It's crazy.
There are a lot of scenes that are very close to what actually happened on screen, or have the same placement or the same general structure. A lot of the dialogue overall seems tightened up, both in terms of pacing and actual sentences and words and everything like that. But good stuff. Any final thoughts, Pete?
Nope.
I just want to say, obviously this script also really focuses on Barchi. Barchi's where this ride began, and it's great that we are able to come back to that now in this upcoming season and really ride again.
Yeah, see, that's the thing I'm most nervous about, is what's going to happen this season, because I feel like I'm going to get fucked, and it's going to be really awful.
Fucked?
Yeah, it's going to. They're going to be
specifically.
They're just going to be like, yeah, we're breaking up Jughead and Betty. So fuck you who believed in this relationship and cheered for it.
I don't think that's the point. I think the point is the DNA of this show, and I don't even want to get into the Archie comic side of it, but the DNA of this show is in this first episode that we just read, where it's about Betty's feelings for Archie. Archie's misplaced feelings for Grundy. Veronica coming to town and having this 7 Minutes in Heaven moment with Archie. It's this sort of wheel of different feelings when Archie even says I love you, Betty, but I'm not good enough for you. And I think part of maybe what this time forward, this jump ahead is going to be, is Archie finally maybe believing or realizing that he is good enough for her. Well, and whether or not it works out in the end, I think that is it's an interesting to reread this now. I think is really interesting.
Well, one thing I just want to quickly point out there, L.A. Justin, as you know, when something starts out as a script or when the show does a season or two, it takes a little bit to really get going, to really feel like we know these characters. This is where we want them to go. So maybe something started and they're like, hey, isn't this cool? But then they realized, oh, this is whack. This relationship is dumb and outdated. Where the real action is you put Jughead and Betty together, and that's the money.
Yeah, I'm sure that's what they say is like, Jughead and Betty, that's the money.
I'm just picturing somebody sending back a script and writing next to a Betty and Archie dialogue, whack, question mark? That ties very nicely into our questions, which all of you are very kindly sending in on Twitter. I think we only got one from Instagram for whatever reason. But I bunched them together because there were a lot of similar things. Here's the first one. There's a whole bunch of them. TVD Vixen says, what do you think of the theory in the season 5 finale, Archie confessing his love for Betty on her doorstep, paralleling the pilot, ending in them kissing in the rain, and having them date in season 6? Also, BCTTY Andrews says, Barchi rain kiss, that's all. Also, Barchizzy says, Barchi will finally be together, finally. Slow Burns for the win says, it's time for Barchi, period. Bar Cheating says, there's been strictly Bughead and Barchi for too long on the show. Barchi should be done now. No. And Millie80331818 says, all I want is for the writers to explore Barchi a bit. It's literally the only storyline they haven't done, and it's starting to get on my nerves how much they ignore it.
Keep it coming. Keep reading those comments. Mainline those comments.
46 more comments to get through. No, that was all of them. Go ahead, Pete.
No, because they did that whole stupid, what was it, dream sequence or flashback to when they were kids or whatever. People change, man. You can't just... I appreciate the fact that you love something from a comic. I very much can appreciate that. But
it's not even that. I think it's on this show. Like, everyone loves Betty, and her unrequited love is Archie, and they haven't been together.
But that's when she was a kid, before she knew what she wanted, before she's too sophisticated for this fuck now. It's not even like a real... I just don't understand.
I think she's read enough of Jughead's dime store murder novels, and she's ready to move on to a man that writes something he's calling songs.
I will take a little exception because I got this one on something similar on Tumblr the other day where people were like, Barchi has literally never been explored. First of all, it's been woven throughout most of the seasons of the show. It has been explored a little bit. It has not been explored to the extent of Bughead or Varchi, but on the other end of the spectrum, there are also a lot of other things that have not been explored. Barchi is certainly a major
Flying
one,
babies
but there are a lot
explored.
of other different ways that they potentially can go. And I think, without going on a limb, if they really, coming from the Barchi perspective, putting myself in that headspace, if they really wanted to do
Alex.
That parallel, it's not going to be until the last episode of the show, right? Like, you're going to go from the first episode to the last episode, and we don't know when that's going to be at this point.
But I think you got to play it. You have to live in that relationship.
No, you
like
don't.
Like to one of the comments there, the tweets. Like, we have seen Varchi a lot, and I think we do need to see Barchi on the other side, and then the end of the show becomes about which relationship is right. Like, it could be Bughead. I mean, it's probably not, but it could be, and we don't know that.
That's what they're doing with the time dash, is they're going to say, like, okay, we're fast-forwarding. Now we have these old people revisiting their town.
Old people.
Like, remember?
They're like 23.
Yeah. And then they're going to be like, oh, remember when, I used to have a crush on you. And maybe they explore it a little bit. But then they realize, this is just a dumb idea and something that people wanted. But now that we're seeing it, we're realizing this isn't that great.
Well, let me lay out two options that I've been thinking about. I do think we're going to get Rain Kiss at the end of the season we haven't finished watching yet. And then it can either be that Betty and Archie have been together throughout the whole time dash, and then we're meeting up with them in relationship, which I think is actually bad for Barchi. I feel like that means it's much more likely they will break up. Mm-hmm. Or Archie will have gone off, everyone will have gone their separate ways, and then it's going to be Archie and everyone coming back together, and maybe Barchi happening in real time in the season we're going to watch, which is the one that I prefer, obviously.
Now, the rain kiss is kind of like a trope, right, that we've seen a lot. And I've been thinking about the rain
Not
kiss.
like this, you haven't.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What do you think about this? Like, we fast forward, Archie is now the janitor at the high school, and he is messing around with the sprinkler system. He accidentally blows up the high school, and they turn on the sprinkler system to save the high school. And as they save the high school, they kiss underneath the sprinkler.
See, I thought you were going to go for fire kiss for a second. Like the fire is raining down on them from the high school, just rubble falling on their heads, and they kiss
hot.
under that. Just bonk, 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 kiss, kiss, kiss.
Nice.
Rubble. You like the end of end of Game of Thrones style? That'd be a fucked up way to go.
Yeah, don't do that, baby. That didn't work out well for anybody.
Didn't work out.
Let's move on. Talk about something else. This was
Great idea.
Very simply suggested, but by multiple people. Phallus Happiness says Phallus Wedding. Mad Amy 17 says Phallus Endgame. And X That Blonde Girl says, what about Phallus? So let's talk about this. The thing is, we do know that Skeet Ulrich is leaving the show in the 3rd episode. He had a whole goodbye on set. He's moved on to other projects. What does that mean for Phallus? Either in the short term or the long term.
Not good. When one person, just my relationship experience. If one person leaves the relationship, very hard to continue the relationship.
Well, you could have a long distance relationship, you know what I mean? And that is kind of one person leaving. But I hope that we get a little F Palace before the leave, and then maybe that gives us hope that if he wises up and comes back to the show, they can revisit it.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, maybe this goes
dies.
under the category of spoiler, but they did put this up on Instagram. So it seems like the goodbye scene happens outside the high school, and something they'd be doing on set for COVID protocols is before you do, between every kiss, between every take of a kiss, you have to gargle with special mouthwash for a minute. And then spit it into a bag, and then they throw it out.
Or do they throw it out?
Yeah, or do they save it?
Save it.
Or they mail it to the biggest fans, the biggest
pals. Oh, man, that'd be great. Speaking of which, patreon.com/comic book club. Just putting that out there. Maybe there's a bag of spit. I don't know what I'm talking about.
That was weird.
Yeah. Skeet Ulrich and Mate Adamic did that. So there is a F Palace kiss coming down the pike.
Excited
You
for
know that because you were able to get your hands on those bags? That's how you know?
Yeah, I tested them.
Oh,
what are you talking about?
This bag of spit tests positive for kiss. Negative for COVID, positive for kiss. I think, I have no evidence to back this up. I think FP's going to go out in a blaze of glory. I don't think he's just going to go and take a trip and be like, hi, I'm out here in the world. Something's going to happen that causes him to sacrifice himself. It feels like that's the build of the character to me.
They have said that he's going to be alive, though. Like, I could see him doing some sort of big, teary, this is it, goodbye, so it feels very final, not just, well, I'm taking a bike ride outside of town. But he is going to be around, and I think if there is any couple that is endgame, it's probably FP and Alice. You know, that's the sort of thing I could see Skeet... FP, pulls up on his bike in the final episode. Alice gets out. She throws out her gum from her mouth and gets on the bike, and they ride off together.
Wow.
That would be amazing.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I would love it. Let's move on to another one. This is another one two folks sent in. Me, Myself, and You said, I'm questioning what's going to happen with the twins. I don't want Shoni to still be taking care of them or have the twins be that thing that splits them up because they couldn't be a typical relationship. And the nobility of A said, do you think the twins will still be around, 10 years old or somehow still be babies?
That's a crazy request. They should be floating babies.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I would love it if they were still babies. That would be the funniest thing.
Yeah,
I think they're going to be. They're going to be aged up. They're going to be dressing like tiny little Shonies, and I think it's going to be great. I think they're going to. If there's going to be a family unit on this show that thrives in the time dash, I think it's going to be Shoni Shopaz and kids.
It would be
Well,
amazing if one was like a little Tony and one was like a little Cheryl. Oh, it'd be so adorable.
100%.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Here's a note of caution that I'll throw to you, and we don't know much more about it than this. In the next season, Drew Ray Tanner, who plays Fangs, has been upped to a main cast member.
Yeah, because
he's going to be
Bad Boys
living
for Life.
with Kevin, which is kind of exciting for Kevin, and we'll get to that one in a second. But also, Tony is going to be living with him. She's going to be the Serpent Queen. The thing that kind of raised my alarm bell a little bit is, why is Tony living with Kevin and Fangs instead of with Cheryl? What's going on there?
Maybe
Well, when you're a queen, you have to live in your kingdom. And then if you happen to be dating a noted archer from the next kingdom over, you go visit.
I think that, when you're a noted queen, you can't live in a house where there's old people in the walls. You know what I mean? Like, that's just not a good way to live. Plus, there's like corpses being wheeled around and talked to. So I think if she's smart, she gets the fuck out of that creepy ass house.
Let me ask you, Alex, are you implying that you're predicting a Shoni Shopaz split?
I think there's going to be a split, yeah.
No!
Or I think there's going to be something, because it's 7 years after, right? I could see some sort of thing where you could have a storyline where one of them wants to get married, the other one doesn't. There's a big fight over that. And so Tony has moved out in with Kevin and Fangs until Cheryl decides to settle down or something like that, you know?
Yeah.
Cheryl settle down? I don't think so.
More like Cheryl wises up and knows she can't do better than Tony.
This to get back to the Kevin thing. To get back to the Kevin thing. Riverdale Fantic, says hashtag Kevin Keller needs better representation and screen time. And Austin Piercy says it's time to give Kevin a story. They've been promising that for seasons. From the Katie Keene time jump, we know he's working at Riverdale High as the drama teacher after a failed Broadway go, whatever you want to call it, and he's living with Fangs. Is that going to be a storyline, though, or is that going to be just a mention and then we move on as usual?
Well, do you think they have to speak to the Katie Keene timeline? Is that part of the show?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, it's canon.
Kind of, but also them going, Katie Keene was 5 years ahead and this is 7 years ahead. So they could be like, yeah, and then I'm not working at high school anymore.
Yeah. I like him at the high school. I like him in a relationship. I hope that character, I hope we get to really be a part of that.
Yeah, my vote is more Kev. I hope it's not too sad for him, and hopefully that we don't have to live through his heartbreak of his failed Broadway debut.
Get this man a kidney back.
He grew extra kidneys during the time jump. That's how everything works.
Yeah.
Pete, you're not going to like this one. This is from Dingus Dugas. Theory. Pop Tate passes away, which makes the gang come back to Riverdale, but a hidden evil will force them to stay and confront their past and present demons.
Agree.
No.
You can't work in the chocolate shop for that many years without getting a hard crust of hamburger grease around your organs.
Oh, so he doesn't die of foul play. He just dies of a heart attack.
Oh,
He's going to die of burger lung.
You can't kill off Pop Tate just like you can't kill off Alfred. It's bullshit when they do stuff like that.
So we do know there's a new regular joining the series, and it's Erin Westbrook. I think it's Westerbrook, is joining as Tabitha Tate, who is Pop Tate's daughter. She's going to be mixing it up with Veronica on the business end of things a little bit and trying to expand Pop Tate into a national chain. So that's going to cause some conflict there. But I think that's where this theory is coming from, is why does Tabitha come to town and try to do this if Pop is still around? But I don't know. I don't think they're going to kill Pop.
Don't do it.
I don't see them doing that.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
Stop.
Because he's old.
That is true. And
who cares?
He's going to be 7 years older. So what is he going to be, 30 at that point? That's
disgusting
old.
age.
Fuck you both.
I bet the only witness is going to be that hamburger who's been narrating things the entire time.
Oh, man.
Darkness finally came to my little diner. Oh, no, don't eat me.
Here's another pair of comments. Random Morris says, do you think the Charles Chick storyline will be wrapped up before the time jump, or will that be another season-long thing? And Bad Gamer 31 says, are they ever going to revisit Charles and Chick's relationship and what exactly they have had up their sleeves?
I think I think that ends the season we haven't seen yet. And then I bet we will. I mean, perhaps one or both of them dies. But if not, if they become the sort of Hal of the future seasons, like I could see them being the villain we revisit. I mean, this show doesn't ever let anything go to waste.
I don't know about that, but I think that let's just let this whole Chick thing die off and never address it again.
No, he's got to keep coming back until Riverdale is finally saved as the true hero that God. Riverdale needs.
That's 100%. It's like the Rise of Skywalker.
Your favorite movie.
Yes, it's definitely, famously my favorite movie. I mean, he could easily be the Emperor's grandchild.
All right, here's another one. This is a little bit of a swerve, but from Nelso Blitz Kelso. If you could bring in one character from another TV show to join the Riverdale gang, who would it be?
Oh, great question. I guess probably Brian Williams from the Evening News.
Wow. Wow.
Man, that's a good one.
Yeah.
He'd have some interesting perspectives on everything going on.
Yeah. Get him in there.
You know what? Let me go in a different direction. I would choose Rachel Maddow from MSNBC.
Ooh, smart.
Yeah, she is on Batwoman, so it's like a little bit of an easy.
Makes a lot of sense.
Ooh. I would go with K.O.
K.O. Kelly from Katie Keene.
Yeah, he would be fun.
I mean, that's an easy one.
Much easier.
I want Josie back. But then also Panthro from Thundercats. I think that would be great.
A lot of options.
Any
there.
particular reason, or
well,
just
Panthro really never got his due on Thundercats, so maybe you put him on a teen drama and he can get a little bit more love.
He could build a lot of fun vehicles for them to drive around in.
Yeah. Also, it'd be fun to have an animated character on a live action show and nobody address it.
Do you know what? Real answer, Justin. You watched Raised by Wolves.
Hell yeah!
I'd love to see Mother from Raised by Wolves show up.
That's fucking crazy. I'll tell you what, though, this show could get away with it.
Absolutely. Her trying to take care of everybody in town, all the kids and everything, round them up.
Yeah.
Just talk to them. Jughead, where are you, Jughead? I put in my eyes.
The town with Pep was in trouble yet again when Mother's eyes got lost in the bacon grease trap at Pop's Chocolate Shop.
Although it would be nice if maybe some Riverdale High got some Ted Lasso coach talks that could really turn their lives around a little bit.
Cheryl would definitely lock him in the office, same as the other one. No questions.
Well, a follow-up question. Is there a character from another show that could seamlessly work in Riverdale? That it would be like, oh, this makes sense. Because I think
not Katie Keene, not Chilling Adventures of Sabrina.
Outside of the Riverdale universe, the Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa verse, because Riverdale is the tone of Riverdale is so specific. I know we joke all the time, anything can happen on this show, including the cast suddenly being like, hey, I watched tonight's episode of Riverdale that I currently am in, and it's a crazy ending. I can't wait for 10 minutes from now. But I do think it's tricky to actually slot in an outside thing.
I think I have two answers. One is I was that weird alien from X-Files that could fit through any kind of he could turn into slime or whatever and go through vents and stuff like that. I think that would be a fun character on the show that you don't need to explain. You can just show a couple times. And then also from Preacher, what's his face, who I love, and I can't believe I'm blanking on his name, would be amazing.
Cassidy?
Yeah, Cassidy.
Wow, strong choice. Alex, what do you say?
I was going to say something else, but I actually think, conversely to Pete's weird answer about the X-Files weirdo, I think Mulder and Scully actually could make sense, like having them show up and investigate a mystery one time.
That would be amazing.
They've done that on other shows and they've crossed over, but I think that would actually be pretty seamless.
Yeah, that's actual FBI agents show up. I'm going to throw out early series Buffy. Could pop into this show and sort of before shit was so crazy on Buffy, but like when it was just like there's some weird stuff happening. Pop in here, let's do it.
I could see something where Cordelia shows up, right, and mixes it up with Cheryl or something like that. That would be fun. What a fun time. This is from D. Deddy. I'll explain what she's talking about in a second if you don't know, but I think the girl in the picture with the truck is Polly, possibly escaped Shady Oaks. I hope the family man doesn't try to pick her up. This is from some early promo art that they sent out with the Riverdale logo. There was a blonde woman running away from a truck.
Actually, I really love this idea. You put Archie in the Sylvester Stallone over the top role where Archie starts driving trucks for a living and starts arm wrestling for money on the side. I really think that's in his wheelhouse. That would be pretty amazing.
What if the show, we had a whole episode that was just a montage of all the shit Archie did in the 7-year gap?
That would be amazing.
Truly just a straight up 42-minute montage with commercials. But in the commercials, there's more stuff that Archie's done.
He's in the commercials, yeah.
He's a voiceover for a Toyota commercial. He's like hanging out with the Geico Gecko. All of it could work.
Oh, man.
Absolutely. I'm 100% in on that. We have a couple of other quick ones here before we wrap up. From me, myself, and you, I also really want to see Cheryl as a lawyer. That's interesting. Do you think that could happen in the time jump?
I mean, she has a strong Legally Blonde energy that I think she could really bring to some fun courtroom scenes.
Yeah. Cheryl owns any room that she's in, so yeah, she could definitely do that, no problem.
Similarly, or on the same sort of couple, Cheryl Blossom, but with a 0 instead of an O, says, do you think post-time jump Tony might be pregnant? I assume this is riffing off the fact that Vanessa Morgan is pregnant in real life and expected to give birth in January. What do you think? Are we going to see pregnant Tony, or are they just going to kind of skip over it?
I would give them a lot of extra credit if they went that way, and maybe that plays into like some fun with pregnant Serpent Queen, and maybe if there is a split between Cheryl and Tony after they decided to have a kid of their own, like that makes the stakes that much higher.
I agree. I like that. I mean, I love Shoni and I want them to be together. But if there is some sort of thing like that does feel like a way to split them up, but set the exes to lovers trope type thing going. And I think that'll be fun. They clearly are using some baggy clothing to hide it pre-time jump. But post-time jump, she's pretty pregnant right now, so I don't know how many lamps they can stick in front of her. And last one, this is from Lesbiane Klaus. A lot of fans have been campaigning for bisexual Veronica since season 1. Is this finally the season where we're going to get to see that?
I mean, that's the thing with the time jump is like these characters can do anything. Like we can see them come back as long as the core sort of person is there. I think whatever choices they make and whatever person they become is totally justified. And I do think there's some truth to that. In the script we read for today, like Veronica's the one that kisses Betty, right?
There you go. All right, folks, I think we're going to wrap up there. Thanks, as usual, for listening. We'll try to come back every now and again with more special episodes like this as we very close now, relatively speaking, to January 20th, to the premiere date of season 5. We're getting there.
It feels
it's just
so
around
close.
the corner.
We got to make it past this election before you can say things like that.
Honestly, it feels very far away, but also it's been so long since the quote-unquote season finale.
Yeah, and I'll also mention in between that, at the end of December, we're going to be back with our Chilling Adventures of Sabrina podcast for crying face emoji. The final part of that show, that's coming out December 31st. So we're going to plug out a bunch of episodes for that when it comes out on Netflix. So stay tuned for that in Chilling Podcast of Sabrina. We'll also try to throw it in the Riverdale feed as well, so you can check it out there. Also, we do a live show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. to Crowdcast and YouTube. Come hang out. We would love to chat with you about Riverdale at Riverdale Dark on Twitter, at Riverdale After on Instagram. Also, iTunes, Android, Spotify, Stitcher, or the app of your choice to subscribe and listen to the show. ComicBookClubLive.com for this podcast and many more. Until next time, I'm the hamburger saying good night.